SynthStories starts right now.
Would I be the a-hole if I didn't split my income with my boyfriend like his mother keeps trying to have me do? Help/advice is needed. I, 21, female, and partner 26, male, have been together for 3 years, living together for 2 years, and what I make yearly has been the topic since we moved in together. For context, I am a dog breeder. I started breeding about 3 years ago and have come quite a long way. All of my dogs go through extensive checkups, boarding/training, and all of my dogs are titled in agility, rally, scent work, and tracking, which costs me thousands a year. I started out making $36,000 yearly, then the following year $67,000, and now I make about $140,000 yearly. I have 4 dogs, 3 females and 1 male. I also have a stud I use from another breeder. Here is where this issue started. I bought a puppy last year after I moved in with my boyfriend. She is solely mine legally, and I take care/pay for everything just like I do with my other dogs. I went on a trip to visit family and asked my boyfriend to watch my dogs, and if anything came up, just call me. Well, 2 days after I left, Millie, the puppy I bought, became very lethargic. Stopped eating and overall looked ill. He and his mother took her to the vet, and come to find out she had eaten an extension cord and part of a blanket. The surgery was $6,000 with a $500 deposit to start the surgery until I arrived. I told him to pay for it and I'd pay him back. I got back 2 days later, gave him the $500 deposit back, and paid the remainder $5,500 when I picked her up. Since then, his mother says whatever I make from the dogs, it need to be split, even as it is his dogs as well. I've told her multiple times he has no right to any money I make, just as I have no right to anything he makes. As well as it would be different if we both bought the dogs together and we both did equal amounts of work/time and money into the dogs. Last week I got a bank statement and had it opened on my countertop, and his mother saw what I had saved, which was roughly $160K, and brought it up at a family dinner she hosted 3 days ago and said, "I don't know why you won't split half of it with him. It's not like it won't become both of your money when you get married." I will admit I did snap a little bit. I told her that my money is none of her business, and that she could kiss my ass if she thought my boyfriend would get a damn thing from me. Now I being told by my side and his side of family that I am the a-hole. So would I be the a-hole if I didn't share any other the money I make?
My boyfriend, 31 male, is suddenly demanding that I, 27 female, stop consuming fictional media at all. What do I even do? So this is honestly one of the weirder relationship issues I've ever found myself in, and I feel like I'm losing my grip on what's normal here. My boyfriend and I originally bonded over our shared love of nonfiction. We both went through this big Tudorian history phase when we first met, like deep diving into documentaries and nerding out about Henry VIII's succession drama. I loved that about him. I still love that about him, and I never ever cared that he wasn't as into the high fantasy books and shows I adored. It's just never been a requirement for me that my partner shares every interests as me. When it came to watching things we both would enjoy, it would be stuff like The Bear, period dramas that were on the more accurate side, gritty crime series, docu-series, etc., etc. We'd usually have good time with that, but things have really changed over the past couple months. At first, it was just small stuff where he'd gently decline when I asked if he wanted to watch some of the more reality-based shows we both used to enjoy. Then he started making these little comments about how fiction is a waste of time, or how fantasy is escapism for people who don't want to deal with real life. I brushed that off, because everyone's entitled to their tastes. But as you can see from the title, it's become more than that. A couple weeks ago, he started getting visibly annoyed if I put on one of my shows while he was in the room. Not even asking him to watch it with me, just me watching something fictional, and it was the same with books. He literally scoffed when he saw me rereading one of my favorite fantasy novels and said, "I don't understand how an adult can take that seriously." What happened last night is what encouraged me to make this post. I was curling up after work with a blanket and my book, and he told me that he can't respect the fact that I waste hours on make-believe when there's real knowledge out there. He said fiction is rotting my brain and that he doesn't want to date someone who lives in stories instead of the real world. I told him that's ridiculous. I have a stable job, friends, responsibilities. I'm not ignoring reality. I just like my stories. It's relaxing, it's fun, it doesn't hurt anyone. He doubled down and said if I cared about intellectual growth, I'd stop reading and watching fictional media altogether and stick to nonfiction. I honestly thought he was exaggerating at first, but he's dead serious. He said he doesn't want that stuff in his home and that we needed to be on the same wavelength about what's worthy of our time. I told him no, absolutely not, that's controlling and bizarre. He insists it's not controlling, but rather a standard for the kind of life he wants to build. I don't know if this is burnout, depression, some weird identity crisis, something he read online, or something else entirely, but it's making me uncomfortable, and honestly, I feel like disrespected and a bit angry. I don't know how to talk to him anymore without him acting like I'm intentionally lowering my IQ by reading fantasy.
Am I the a-hole for refusing to attend family functions now that my father's affair child is being invited to them? This one's got lots of parts. But to simplify it, I, male 18, practically always had an issue with Sadie, female 17, who I've known since kindergarten. Her brother, 20 male, bullied me for 6 months when I was in first grade. Him and his friends bullied me and a few others, but I was his favorite target. My mom got involved and he got in a lot of trouble, especially when he was bullying younger kids. After her brother got in trouble, Sadie turned on me and she has been persistent. My mom was in and out of each school I went to, making sure I was in different classes than Sadie and that the school didn't let Sadie get away with bullying me too. She didn't stop. At least she didn't stop until we found out my dad is her bio father, which was 10 or 11 months ago. Which brings me on to finding out my dad cheated on my mom, and my parents are almost at the end of their divorce now. Dad has tried so hard to stop it, when she was pregnant with me. Sadie's mom wasn't married, but she was with Sadie's brother's dad, and they got married when Sadie was 2. Sadie thought he was her dad too. But he didn't treat her the same, and I have been told over and over to be forgiving and compassionate because the exclusion and verbal abuse she got from her dad made her lash out. I was pissed when I found out. I was pissed at Dad for doing that to Mom. But of all people Sadie had to make? Yeah, I made it clear to everyone that Sadie might have the same bio dad as me, but I would never be her brother, and I still hate her, so she can fuck off and leave me alone. My dad's family aren't talking to him either. They don't like the mess he made and they tried to rally around me and Mom. But a few months ago they started to change and would ask us to change our feelings towards Sadie and to find compassion. My mom had none for her, and she told Dad's family members there was no way she would family up, her way to describe it, to a girl who tormented me for a decade and even cyber harassed me with messages telling me to live myself. I told Dad's family that I wasn't willing to have a relationship with Sadie. I said I wouldn't stop them, but they shouldn't expect to see me where Sadie will be. They told me a million times she's my sister, and I told them she's Dad's affair kid and a stalker and I hate her. I said Dad fucking up and making her doesn't change that. Sadie's first family function is going to be Christmas, and Dad's side are so annoyed I won't show my face for even a little while. They told me it would be good for me and for Sadie, and I told them I don't care what's good for Sadie. I said seeing her would ruin my Christmas. Just like having to pretend I don't hate her would ruin it. They told me I should see all she's been through and be willing to at least see her for their sakes. Am I the a-hole?
Me, 24 female, my roommate, 23 female, and her BF, 25 male. He snores. I said something, big problem. Original post, March 7, 2016. Okay, I don't even know where to begin. My roommate, Claire, is good friend of mine and has been since college. Her boyfriend, Mike, is a good guy for the most part. I like him, but it's one of those situations where they aren't a good couple. They always get in silly fights and are constantly annoying each other. It's weird because separately, they're great, but together, they aren't the best couple. I'm super busy during the week, full-time job plus full-time grad student plus hobbies, so I'm usually in bed pretty early. We have a small apartment, but since Mike works close by, he always ends up at our house. It's a little annoying because he really is there almost every night, but since I'm not around too much, basically to sleep and eat, I try not to rock the boat. Like I said, I like him and she's a good friend and roommate, so I figure pick your battles. But there's one big issue, he snores so fucking loud. Like, legitimate log saw. So loud. For whatever reason it just really started bugging me last night. I usually can ignore it, put on some Netflix or something, but last night I couldn't sleep and was getting really frustrated, so I decided I should say something because he really is at our house a lot and it's definitely not the first time his snoring has kept me up. I opened her bedroom door and said, "Hey Mike, sorry, but you're snoring super loud." And that's it. I didn't berate him, I know it's not something you can really control. Plus, he's overweight, so that definitely doesn't help. It stopped and I thought that was the end of it. Claire leaves earlier than I do and Mike usually sleeps in, so when I got up in the morning I was just minding my own business, making my breakfast and prepping my lunch. I don't think I've ever seen Mike get up when I'm up in the morning, but this morning he came into the kitchen when I was milling around. I was surprised to see him and joked, "Good morning sunshine." And he started screaming at me. Not joking, straight up yelling at me. He called me a bitch, said I was super rude and condescending, said how disrespectful it was for me to wake him up when I was doing the same thing to him now. Apparently me making breakfast in my own home and waking him up is an issue. I was super freaked out and immediately just left. He's a big guy and Claire has mentioned he has a temper, so I just wanted to get the hell out of there. I don't know what to do. I don't even know how to broach the subject with Claire. I'm staying late to do some homework, but also because I don't even want to go home. How should I even approach this? My mind is so jumbled I don't even know how to formulate the right sentences. Too long, didn't read, my roommate's boyfriend is over all the time and his snoring keeps me awake. I finally said something and he freaked out on me. Update, March 9, 2016, 2 days later. Wow, okay, so a lot has happened since my post. First things first, I got a lot of heat for entering her room without knocking. Damn people, it wasn't like that at all. Literally did the 2 to 3 courtesy knocks, opened the door all of 3 inches so I could say something and left. It wasn't like I barged in to scream at them. I didn't even go inside. If I didn't open the door a crack, he wouldn't have heard me. Besides, she's one of my best friends and we've lived together before. She's not some Craigslist roommate with whom I have no relationship, so this wasn't some extreme breach of privacy. I've tried earplugs, but I can't sleep with them comfortably. Literally the only way to get someone to stop snoring is to wake them up, and since I'm not in bed with them and can't tap or nudge him, that was the only thing I could do. And after months of dealing with it and trying to be cool about it and multiple night after night sleepovers, I was a bit fed up with our third roommate who doesn't pay rent keeping me up. I've done the texting thing. I've done the accidentally knock the wall thing. It's that bad that I've tried numerous things to get him to stop. He knows he snores really loud, but doesn't wear the strips or do anything to help control it. I know it's something you can't control, but what am I supposed to do if I can't sleep? So that's that, and I regret nothing. So no, I'm not super rude for courtesy knocking and slightly opening my close friend's door to let her boyfriend know his overstayed welcome snoring was bothering me for the umpteenth time. Anyway, I'm happy to report this is a very positive update. Luckily things happened pretty quickly because it was a fairly urgent issue. I ended up staying super late at work to finish some homework, so that was a good thing because A, I got a shitload of stuff done, and B, it gave me some time to cool off, gather my thoughts and figure out what to say. I gave her a call because I thought texting would be a bit complicated. I wanted to ask if we could talk about something when we got home, and she said she already knew what I was going to say, which made me nervous. So I said this isn't a conversation I wanted to have completely over the phone, but hear me out. I explained what happened and I said something like, "Look Claire, I love you to death and I want you to be happy, but I cannot have Mike in our home. He really scared me this morning." She immediately started crying and asked me to come home, so I left right that instant. When I got there, she said he'd texted her earlier saying weird stuff about how we got in an argument. There was no argument because I didn't really say anything, and that I was out of line. She was going to text me about it, but knew I was super busy and figured she'd just ask me about it when I got back from work. Once she heard how bad it was, she felt awful. I guess he's been really verbally aggressive to her as well lately. Like I said, she's mentioned he has a short fuse and a temper, but she's done a good job of hiding how bad it really is. I guess it's gotten pretty bad, which made me start crying because I love her dearly and it made me really sad to hear about how much she's hurting. So she totally agreed he had overstayed his welcome, but also had no idea how I felt because I didn't say anything. It was my bad that I was just internalizing my anger about the situation instead of being honest about it, but I'm glad that wasn't a point of contention. We didn't have to compromise about it because she knew she wanted out. This was just the final straw. So we talked for about 2 hours about the plan of attack and how she needs to get out of the relationship. I'm glad we were able to talk openly about it and that she felt comfortable discussing it with me. Like I said, I knew they had some issues, but I had no idea it was this bad. Apparently there's been lots of yelling and minimal happiness. It's her first serious relationship, so she said she assumed this was normal after you'd been together for a fair amount of time. But she was also embarrassed and didn't want to discuss it with me because she knew I would be worried, which is 150% correct, although I wish I would have known obviously. So she made a plan to meet him in a public spot and break up with him. I said that I would be supportive in any way she needed me to be, so she asked me if I could drop her off and pick her up when it went down. I was really apprehensive about that because I didn't want to run into Mike or make the situation worse, but since that's what she wanted I was happy to do it. So yesterday evening I dropped her off down the street of a coffee shop and ran some errands nearby waiting for her call so I could grab her when she was done. After an hour she called me and asked me to pick her up. She sounded fine. I picked her up down the street and we drove back home. She said it went surprisingly well and that he felt bad about everything, which shocked me. He agreed that it hadn't been working out and although he tried to plead to get her back, she wasn't having it. To be honest, I was absolutely shocked. I didn't anticipate him being so calm and level-headed about it. And while I was still a little freaked out about what happened the other day, her situation was much direr than mine and I'm obviously not holding my breath for an apology or anything, nor do I really give a shit. Although Mike seemed to be okay with the situation, we notified the landlord ahead of time of what happened just in case he ever returns to stir shit up. I really truly hope it doesn't, and I don't think he will, but better safe than sorry I suppose. I'm just glad she's okay and that I don't have to deal with his craziness and loud-ass snoring anymore. I slept like a baby last night without him there, and plan on sleeping like a baby again tonight. Too long, didn't read, Claire and Mike are done, he was surprisingly cool about it, no more snoring.
Am I the a-hole for ending my marriage without therapy less than a month before Christmas because I'm tired of being treated like a monster because I believe my stepdaughter needs therapy? I hope my title made some sense, but if not I will try to explain. 8 years ago I, 33 female now, met a young widower, 35 male now, who had a 6-year-old daughter, 14 female now. He and his late wife had technically been separated at the time of her death and so he was ready to move on, but I believe his daughter needed help and a few times before we got married I said as much and I was told she was just more reserved by nature and she'd come around to me in time. This wasn't just my husband saying this either. His whole family were saying the same thing. They told me the proof was in the fact she wasn't being blatantly rude or disrespectful and wasn't throwing tantrums or acting out. I tried to build a good relationship with my stepdaughter, but the more that time moved forward, the less it seemed likely or possible. She wasn't outright angry, but she wouldn't open up to me or willingly spend any one-on-one time with me. She spent one-on-one time with her dad, but at a certain point, when he and I had our first child, this also changed. Once I was pregnant with our first child, her behavior did change. She started getting angry, started cursing at me and yelling at her dad for having another baby. She told him he betrayed her mom and she wasn't going to accept our child as a sibling or accept him being a dad to someone else's baby. After I gave birth, my husband did put my stepdaughter in therapy, or so he told me, and he said he realized help was needed. But when I was pregnant with our second child, I found out this wasn't really true. He instead took her to classes that were supposed to prepare kids for being an older sibling and was meant to help get them excited for a younger sibling. This was going on for months before I realized, and he argued at the time that it was a form of therapy. I started speaking up more about my stepdaughter needing therapy, and it was at that point my husband and his family were acting like I was some monster. They asked me why I kept trying to force the issue and why I couldn't accept her the way she was. While all this was going on, I never left her around the kids. She was also moving stuff and hiding stuff on me whenever she was home. She moved/hid the baby bottles, my phone charger, diapers, my phone and many other things, even food. She would say in front of the whole family that she hated the kids and wished they had never been born. But they were shocked and didn't know what to say to me when I said she needed therapy. They said they felt like I was saying there was something wrong with her or saying she was a monster. I told my husband actual therapy was needed or I would be done. He told me I needed to trust him as he's her parent and he knows her better than I do. Thanksgiving was my final straw. She told several of her cousins that she was going to break all her siblings' toys and she was going to make sure they were so fucked up from this Christmas because she hated them and wanted them to pay. I wasn't the only person who heard this. But I did insist that was exactly why therapy was needed, because she was bragging about wanting to upset her siblings. Yet again, I was the monster though. Even my husband refused to accept she needed help. I was so tired of being the monster because I believed my stepdaughter needed therapy, and a lot of therapy at this point. That night I slept on the couch and the next morning I told my husband I was done. I waited for the next day because I asked my parents if me and the kids could say, and they didn't get back to me until very late. My husband wasn't expecting me to say it was over. But I told him I was done and I explained why. I have already filed for divorce, and to my husband, will be ex, and his parents, that is the worst thing. They keep making a point out of leaving before Christmas, and we never even tried therapy with my husband. Christmas and not going to therapy have been sticking points. But I wouldn't go with him after everything. He already lied to me once. He and his family have been calling me a monster. And his daughter is giddy about terrorizing our children, which he has zero issue with. Am I the a-hole?
My 29 female partner, 32 male, wants to stay with his parents for a week every month. My 29 female partner, 32 male, have been together for around 3 years. He'll be moving to the city I live in within the next few months. We are currently happy and I see a future with him. The issue revolves around how often he plans to visit his parents. They will be about 3 to 4 hours away, and he wants to visit them every month and stay for a full week each time. For now, while we are not living together, I'm okay with this. I have my own family nearby, so of course he wants to see his family too. However, I raised the point that if this pattern continues once we are married and living together, being left alone for a full week, every single month, will make me feel upset and lonely. Instead, I'm happy to travel with him for a weekend every month as I have work on weekdays, whereas he can work remotely. His reaction to my honest feelings was bad. He stated that he doesn't think visiting his parents is a bad thing and that his parents will always take priority. I've had multiple, difficult conversations with him previously about this specific language. I've stressed that I don't want to overtake his parents' ranking as his top priority. I just want to be part of his top priority, and I want him to consider my feelings alongside theirs. Am I being too harsh on him for bringing up my future feelings of loneliness, especially since I have my parents nearby but he wouldn't? Is a week away every month too much to ask for in a future marriage, and how do I move forward when he outright states that his parents will always be his absolute priority over me, his potential wife?
I 42 male discovered my wife, 40 female, has been lying about therapy for 8 months. She's been meeting her ex instead. How do I even process this? Married 12 years, 14 years together, 2 kids, 9 and 6. About 8 months ago, my wife said she wanted to start therapy because she was feeling stuck. I was supportive, encouraged it. She goes every Tuesday 6 to 8 p.m. I handle dinner and bedtime with the kids. She always came home lighter, relaxed. I thought it was really helping her. 2 weeks ago, our credit card got declined at the grocery store. When I checked the statement, there were charges I didn't recognize every Tuesday for months at some restaurant, let's call it Angela's across town. Not her therapist's office, a restaurant. I waited until she mentioned therapy and casually asked where her therapist's office was. She gave me an address. I said, "Oh, is that near Angela's?" She got really quiet. She's been meeting her ex-boyfriend, the one from before we met, her first love, who supposedly moved to another state 10 years ago. He's back, reached out last year. They've been meeting every Tuesday for dinner for 8 months. She swears nothing physical happened, says they're just talking, and she needed someone who knew her before she was a wife and mom, that she felt like she was disappearing, and he reminded her who she used to be. Says it's not an affair, it's friendship, but she knew I wouldn't understand, so she lied about therapy. I'm like, you've been lying to my face every single week for 8 months while I'm home doing bedtime alone, and you want me to believe nothing happened? She started crying, said she's never even kissed him. They literally just talk. That she was going to tell me eventually. That she loves me, loves our family. This was just about needing space to feel like herself. Here's what's messing me up. Part of me actually believes her. We've had a good marriage. She's not a liar normally. But also, who does this? She wants to go to actual couples therapy now. Says she'll cut contact with him completely. Already told him she won't see him again. But I don't know if I can even look at her. My brother says emotional cheating equals lawyer up. My friend says if nothing physical happened, maybe it's salvageable. I don't even know where to start. What would you do in my position? How do I figure out if she's telling the truth? And even if nothing physical happened, can you come back from this level of deception? Too long, didn't read. Wife lied about going to therapy for 8 months. Was actually meeting her ex-boyfriend for weekly dinners. Swears nothing physical happened, just reclaiming her identity. The lying was so calculated and sustained, I don't know what to believe. Need advice on how to even approach this.
Am I the a-hole for asking my husband to limit his time with his nephews because our daughters are missing out? Original post, November 10th, 2025. Hi, I had an issue yesterday with my husband which I'm conflicted about, regarding whether I was in the wrong. My husband and I have 2 daughters, 6 and 8. My sister-in-law and her family live a couple of blocks away from us. They have 2 boys, both 9 years old. Her husband is in the army, so he is away from home a lot. When he's away, the boys come to our house often. They're great boys, respectful and energetic. When they're here, my husband takes them to the park to play soccer. They always say they have a great time, and my sister-in-law also thanks us for it. When they're not around, my husband takes our daughters to the park too. I often join them too, and they also look forward to it. However, when my husband takes the boys along, even though we encourage our girls to go along, they told me they don't enjoy it. Basically, the boys get super competitive and it's not fun the way it is when it's just them with my husband. I take them along by myself, but apparently it's not as much fun, hahaha. My husband can also only do some days of the week, and when their father's away, the boys come on those days. Yesterday, I asked my husband to talk to his sister and set some kind of limit to those days because our daughters like going to the park with him for soccer, and it's not the same with me or when they go with him and the boys. He looked taken aback and said that they're good kids, there's dads away for long stretches, and they seem to have fun here. I said I never said they weren't good kids, just that our daughters felt like they were missing out. He said he'll encourage them more to come with them, and he'll make sure things don't get too competitive. I said we've gone through that before and it's just not fun for them. He said telling his nephews this would be cruel, and made it sound like I was an a-hole for suggesting it. So I wanted to ask, am I the a-hole? Update number 1, November 11th, 2025, same post, next day. Update, since today was a holiday, he was going to let his sister know that he'd be taking the kids to the park earlier today, so the boys should come earlier. I asked my older daughter separately whether she wanted to go. She said no, even though she'd been hyped for it in the morning. I told my husband this. While she was cuddling with him, he asked her why she didn't want to come, but she was avoiding giving a reason. Eventually, my husband asked if it was because she didn't like playing soccer anymore. She said no, she did. Then he brought up whether it was because of the cousins, and she shyly admitted that yes, but didn't give the details that she'd given me about the competitive nature and everything. My husband hadn't texted his sister yet, so he told the girls, the boys can't join right now, and if they still wanted to go to the park, we could all go. Both my daughters suddenly really wanted to go and went to get dressed. So we're at the park now, and the girls are having fun with him. I think he's going to take the boys later in the evening, I'm not sure. But my daughter telling him seems to have made more of an impact than me saying did. Update number 2, November 19th, 2025, same post, 8 days later. Update, a few people had asked me if we've made any progress. So last Tuesday, after we'd gone to the park in the afternoon with the girls because of the holiday, he'd planned on taking the boys separately. I told him he'd be too tired, but then he couldn't because he was beat, so he'd told his sister something had come up. His Fridays are a hit or miss on when he gets back. It kind of depends. He usually knows about how it'll be beforehand though. So my oldest daughter had asked him about his Friday plan on Thursday night. He'd said he'd be back early, they'll be good to go to the park. He then talked to her about if it'll be a good idea to have her cousins come too, that it would be fun like they all used to have, and the girls said okay. When they came back, my husband thought he'd done a good job moderating things. The girls also said it had been okay. They weren't as enthusiastic as they are when they come with him alone, so over the weekend I just asked my oldest if their playtime at the park had gone better because Daddy had been trying to make it fun for everyone. She said it was, but that he isn't as into the game with them as it otherwise is. Basically the gist of it that I was getting was that he takes more of a referee role and it's just different to what they're used to, and I've gone along when it's just a so I kind of understand what she's talking about. It's supposed to be them playing soccer with him, but it's not really, it's very unstructured. They'll start playing whatever the girls feel like midway through, it's just more spontaneous, I guess. I had planned on bringing it up with him on Sunday before they all left for the park. My daughter seemed like she was shy about saying all this, so I thought I would. But she actually brought this up with him herself. On Saturday night when we were watching TV, she asked him if we couldn't invite the cousins tomorrow. My husband said okay, but asked her why she didn't want the cousins there. He later told me he was just concerned about this issue she had with them and wanted to know it wasn't anything serious. She just said they don't have as much fun, so he dropped it at that. I'd had this idea from a few comments on my original post, so I told him I'll tell his sister to still send the boys earlier, I'll go with them, and he agreed. So I took them out earlier, and tried to keep up with them lol, but I thought it went well. I took them for ice cream after 2, the boys got a good outing, my sister-in-law got some rest too. Yesterday we were going to do the same thing, but my sister-in-law told us the boys said they'll just wait for when my husband is free. She asked him when he'd be free, whether his free days had changed. He said there'd just been some changes to his schedule. I was of the opinion he should tell her honestly what's the issue, but he seems to think making our daughters the focus of the conversation would be wrong. I disagree, but she's his sister. So he went yesterday with the girls by himself. They've been super happy, but he said he'll come up with something for the boys too. It's a bit disappointing because I thought the solution I had tried went well, but apparently not. So it's still work in progress. Update number 3, December 6th, 2025, same post, 17 days later. Update, for those of you who've been asking how things are going. So we had a sticky moment on Thanksgiving when we went to my husband's uncle's house a few hours away. The entire family was there and he had like a beach ball. My daughters were passing it to each other and keeping it up from the ground with their heads, and his uncle was praising them. My 8-year-old kind of bragged and said that it was nothing on Friday with their dad, they had managed to keep it up for 14 bounces. My sister-in-law kind of pieced it together and realized that my husband hadn't been honest about the change in schedule, that he had been going to the park with our daughters alone. So we finally addressed the issue with her. She said her boys were fond of my husband and they'd been sensing that he was pulling away, that they weren't stupid. We told her that our daughters were feeling a bit left out, so he had been taking time out for just them. She said that we're all family and that it would be good for the girls to learn to play with others and share. My husband and I had been diplomatic for the most part, but at that I had to defend my girls, and I said that they can't be expected to share their dad, that them wanting to spend alone time with him was perfectly normal, that if it really was an issue with them not wanting to share, then they'd be arguing amongst themselves too, but that was never the case. They were perfectly fine with playing with my husband together. My husband was more conciliatory. He said we should want to make sure that the kids don't start resenting each other, they're cousins and should be on good terms. She said she'd always appreciated how we had helped her and her boys, that it wasn't anyone's fault that her husband was away for months on end, and that family comes together in these times the way we all had. I brought up the idea that since the boys were into playing soccer competitively, she should enroll them in the local community center. She said it wouldn't be the same and we were making a big deal out of this. She even said I should send the girls to her place instead. I said sure, on the days that my husband wasn't available I could do that. He placated her that he'd work something out for them. So for now he's taking our girls out alone on Tuesdays. On Friday he took everyone out and we encouraged our girls to go too, and they did. And for Sunday, he said he'll go with the girls alone again. It seems like we've struck a balance for now. He told me he'll continue with this until the girls feel comfortable enough to play with their cousins. I can tell he feels guilty. And I do a bit too. I'm fond of the boys too, but my girls are definitely happier with this arrangement, and I can't live past that. Thanks a lot for the advice, and I'm hoping everyone can be happy with this state of things.
Am I the a-hole for using therapy to tell my mom I don't respect her or her husband and I don't want to work on our relationship instead of working on our relationship? My parents were married for 12 years when my dad died. I was 6 and now I'm 17. 18 months after my dad died, my mom told me she was dating someone, and it was a little more than 2 years after he died when my mom introduced me to her, now husband. He'd come over to our house and he always expressed discomfort with the family photos and photos of Dad we had at home. I wasn't all that excited to meet him already, but that made it worse. He knew I wasn't exactly happy that he was there, so it was weird, and he told me he thought I needed a dad and he'd work on making that happen. My mom asked me what I thought, and I told her what I didn't like. One of those was he wasn't Dad, and the other was his issues with the photos and memories of Dad. She focused on the he's not Dad part and told me he could still be a good addition. 6 months after I met him, she moved him in with us. Before he moved in, he told Mom and me he wanted the photos and memories of Dad taken down. We had some of Dad's trophies on display and a couple of things he made that were really important to him and to me. The mom said of course, and even though I cried and told her I didn't want them all to go, she took them all down. Once that happened, I lost respect for my mom and I basically decided I would never respect her husband. My mom didn't realize at the time, but she acknowledged since that she felt me pull away from her when he moved in. When my mom and her husband got married, he wanted to adopt me, change my last name, and he wanted to start it all off with a father and daughter dance that I refused to do with him. On their wedding day, he decided to announce it and put me on the spot, but I refused to go to him and I even ran out of the reception hall. I kicked up a fuss about the adoption too, and it never happened. I ended up hoarding Dad's stuff in my room, and his face was all over my room, which he hated, and my mom tried to put a stop to, but I told her if they couldn't be in the rest of the house, then my room was my home now. My mom and her husband have kids together, and I'm checked out of the family, and I never put in any effort to make us a happy family. The lack of respect thing was clear in some ways because I never ask her husband's permission for anything or go to him, and I tell everyone he's not my dad. But I also use my mom's name sometimes, and I don't confide in her, and there are things I keep from her because I don't want her involved. It was 4 months ago when Mom and I started going to therapy at her insistence. She has been saying all this time that she wants to save our relationship, and she has outlined all the issues as she sees them while I say very little. But then last week I decided to put it all out there. I told her I had no respect for her husband. That he wasn't worthy of my respect when he wanted Dad boxed up and thrown away and was too weak and cowardly to deal with the fact she had a past and I had a dad who wasn't him. I told her I had lost my respect for her when she agreed to remove Dad from our home. She interrupted and said he deserved to be comfortable, and then she said Dad wasn't his family and it would be weird for him to live with the memory of a stranger all over the place. I argued that he had photos of his dead loved ones on the wall and I had to live with them and they were nothing to me. So I told her that was a lame argument. She said my half-siblings' dead relatives deserved to be on the wall, and I replied back, but not my dead dad. I told her I didn't want to work on our relationship. I admitted I haven't put any effort into fixing it and I wouldn't. I told her all I could see when I look at her is her giving into some weak-ass dude and removing her late husband and the dad of her oldest child from our home. Then I told her it wasn't my home. It was her husband's home since his comfort came first, and I told her there was no going back from that. I also added that I had no love for her husband either and I didn't like the guy. But that I did love her and sometimes I hated myself for still loving her. My mom ended up breaking down and saying she wanted me to use therapy to fix us and not to try and make her feel bad or hated by me. Her husband was angry when she told him what happened, and he asked me if I was proud of myself for making Mom cry. I told him if he was proud for making a little girl who lost her dad cry and if Mom was proud for her part in it too. Mom heard my response and she cried more because she said she realized I was serious about not wanting to fix our relationship and how she wants me to want it. She still wants to try and all that. Am I the a-hole?
Brother didn't invite me to his wedding, family kept it a secret, I cut them off. Am I the a-hole? I have a large family that started falling apart when my parents passed away 11 years ago. I was 19 and my siblings were all much older. Since then, my siblings and I have had rocky/strained relationships due to various reasons, and I slowly became the outcast of the family. With my brother specifically, things changed when he started dating his now wife and they had a son. He was the first baby in our family, and I love babies, so I wanted to be there to help. Things quickly went downhill when they would ask me to babysit for a couple of hours that turned into 12+ hours. Or a day would turn into a weekend. This happened several times. So I talked to my brother about how I felt about them doing this and how it felt like they were taking advantage. This turned into them telling our family that I thought that the baby was a problem and I didn't want anything to do him anymore. I talked to the rest of my siblings to clear this up, but this changed my relationship with my brother and his family. There were also other situations after this that caused even more of a rift between my brother and I. Since then, I only interacted with my brother and his family at gatherings. From my end, I forgave and still bought them gifts for their birthdays, Christmas, etc., but I never received anything from him. Not a text, a phone call, anything. Fast forward to 3 years later, Thanksgiving Day. My whole family was there, including my brother and his family. Everything seemed normal. I will mention that my relationships with my other siblings had improved a lot over the years and were better. We all had small conversation about the food and discussed Secret Santa participation for Christmas. That was Thursday. On Saturday, I see pictures on social media of what appears to be my family at a wedding. And my brother appears to be the groom. Confused, I take a screenshot and send it to my sisters to ask if our brother had a wedding. They confirm. My brother and I don't have a good relationship, but I didn't think it was so bad that he wouldn't invite me to his wedding. And my relationships with my other siblings have gotten better, so I thought that someone would have mentioned that our brother was getting married. Especially when we were all together just a couple of days prior. Apparently, they were all in on this big secret for months without me. And that hurt. It made me feel like even more of an outcast in my own family than ever before. This isn't the first time that my family has done something like this. It's been a slew of issues and situations over the past decade, and this was the cherry on top for me. My sisters have reached out to try to explain and apologize. I haven't heard anything from my brothers. So am I the a-hole for finally cutting off my siblings? Update. Hi, all. Thanks for the advice and thoughts. You're all right, I should have stopped this a long time ago. Being Latina, family is extremely important in our culture, and if you try to distance yourself from their toxicity, you're made to feel guilty like the a-hole. Not just in this situation, but so many others that have happened throughout the years. And for those wondering, our ages range 25 years from the oldest sibling to the youngest. I'm the second youngest, and our youngest sibling, Sister L, was also not invited or told about this. Basically, all of our issues with our older siblings are related to the age gaps and different ways of thinking/views/opinions. I do believe that the rest of my siblings were told not to mention anything. So agree that they were in a tough position. But like I said, we were all in a good place lately, so all of this just caught me completely by surprise. To be honest, if he or one of my siblings would have given me a heads up that he was having a wedding just so I wouldn't be blindsided, I'd still appreciate the honesty. Sure, I'd still be hurt, but it's his day and it's his choice, which I would have respected because I'm not one for drama/attention. I was mostly hurt about finding out afterwards on social media and knowing that they were all in on it. Especially after just spending time together a couple of days before and thinking everything was fine. As of today, almost 3 weeks later, I've heard nothing from any of my brothers. I did respond to my sisters and expressed my feelings. Sister A's response: "I'm sorry you feel that way." I didn't respond to her after that because I knew I wouldn't get anywhere. Sister B's response actually acknowledged that it was wrong and apologized for her part in it. I accepted her apology, but I feel like I can't trust her after everything that's happened. So I've decided I'm going no contact with all of them. I've blocked them all on social media and their phone numbers. I also canceled the Secret Santa event in the app that we use. Eventually, I may go low contact with Sister B, but need some time and space to be able to make a solid decision. My family has been the biggest source of my stress/anxiety over the years. I have been to therapy on, off for the past several years dealing with my issues, and definitely recommend to anyone going through something similar. An appointment to talk through this might be a great Christmas gift to myself this year. At this point, I feel like I've been through the 5 stages of grief dealing with this. I wasn't just grieving the loss of my parents, but also grieving the family that we once were when our parents were here because they were the glue that held us together. Ultimately, this is me, finally, accepting what we've become. Besides my family, the past couple of years have been the happiest I've ever been. My husband's family accepted me as one of their own, and I feel like they truly care about my well-being. So I'm focusing my time/energy on them, Sister L, and the family that I'm creating with my husband. Hopefully, it'll be better than the one I was born into.
Thanks for listening. Like, comment, and subscribe.